everybody. Welcome to the Powers Now Media Affordable Housing Series with the Golden State Finance Authority. My name is Carolyn Sunseri, Director of Marketing with Golden State Finance Authority, and today I am your host. It's a great time to talk about real estate and to explore your path to homeownership. With me today is Eric Frazier, Vice President and Mortgage Advisor of First Bank. He's here to help us understand the requirements and process of qualifying for a mortgage loan. He's also the President and CEO of the Powers Now Media. Thank you for switching roles with me today, Eric. I'm very excited about the format for today's show. Over the past few months, you and I have explored how the down payment and closing cost assistance programs from Golden State Finance Authority can address the challenges faced by homebuyers in coming up with down payment and closing costs associated with a mortgage loan. Studies keep showing us over and over that the largest burden or the largest challenge is down payment. And that's what new homebuyers are faced with, especially minorities and millennials. So if you haven't watched part 2 and part 3 of this affordable housing series, I encourage you to do so. You can find those videos on our YouTube channel and website, www.gsfahome.org, as well as thepowersnow.com. In those segments, Eric and I examined in detail the GSFA Platinum and Open Doors down payment assistance programs. And then in part 5 of the series, we interviewed an amazing couple who used the GSFA Platinum program to buy a home after having suffered some financial hardships and then finding themselves very discouraged by the home buying process. Their story should motivate anyone who is renting to at least try to get the help they need to buy a home. So here we are today on this final segment of our 5-part series, and we're going to tackle the mortgage qualification process in a very meticulous way for our viewers and listeners. As you know, Golden State Finance Authority does not place very many restrictions or guidelines on borrowers for them to be able to qualify for down payment and closing cost assistance through us. But we do rely and depend on our participating lenders to do the due diligence and ensure that the borrowers are ready and able to take on a mortgage. So let's get started. This segment is one that I believe a lot of our audience will really benefit from. Eric and I are going to talk about some of the challenges that individuals and families may face, financial hardships or special circumstances, and how they may or may not affect qualifying for a mortgage loan and the down payment and closing cost assistance programs through Golden State Finance Authority. In particular, we're going to talk about divorce and separation, bankruptcy, Chapter 7, Chapter 13, even Chapter 11, short sales, foreclosures, tax liens, and collection accounts. So let's continue. In our last segment, you stated the comment, you want to eliminate debt as soon as you possibly can, because if you don't, that debt could bring trouble in your life. The good news is that trouble doesn't always last. You just need to know how to overcome those past things so that they don't rob you of home ownership. So let's talk about some of those specific credit challenges in more depth and how they can occur, how they're evaluated when you're qualifying for a mortgage loan, Eric.
Carolyn, I would be happy to. And I think this is really an important conversation to have because there are a number of things that could derail your journey to home ownership. And these things, as you mentioned before, are divorce and separation, bankruptcy, both Chapter 7, Chapter 11, and Chapter 13, short sales, deed in lieu of foreclosures, foreclosure, and of course, tax liens and collection accounts. And what's interesting is that, money is kind of at the root of all of these things. The number one reason why many people find themselves in divorce or separation is due to money. When people are having to file bankruptcy, it's because of the lack of money or some disruption in their cash flow. When people are losing their homes and need to short short sell their property, it's all because of money. And of course, tax liens, collection accounts are a result of simply not having the money to pay your taxes or to pay your bills that end up going into collection. So we're going to dive into each of these categories. And I'm so happy that people will take the time to talk to me about that. These are some of the most common issues that I discuss in a mortgage consultation. And I take my hat off to the individuals who will take the time, make the time to have the conversation, instead of just, making assumptions about what they can't do or can do because of those aforementioned circumstances. And the truth of the matter is that there is a solution for every single one of them. You can do it. You can still buy a home. And with this kind of track record, if you will, with your personal finances.
Yes, I agree, Eric. They don't have to be the stop block, the thing that prevents somebody from buying a home, but they do need to understand them. And that has been the true goal of this affordable housing series, to provide in-depth education and to empower people with accurate information about qualifying for a mortgage and then down payment assistance through GSFA's programs, and really to help them understand what they need to accomplish in order to put themselves in the position of purchasing a home. And so I want to let our viewers know that for the Golden State Finance Authority's down payment assistance programs, we do follow the loan agency guidelines on these topics. That's the guidelines set by the loan agency who oversees the loan type, the FHA, VA, USDA mortgages, or the conventional financing. And so as we get into these guidelines, we'll let you know if it is something that GSFA is setting, but the vast majority of these guidelines are going to just follow loan agency as somebody is qualifying for a mortgage loan. We're not going to make it even more difficult to qualify for down payment assistance as well. So let's start with the first topic, which is divorce and separation. This is a very common one that many people are dealing with.
You're right, Carolyn. Divorce is a big deal. And in fact, in Western cultures, it is believed that 90% of people get married by the age of 50. And so marriage is kind of woven to the fabric of our society. People want to get together. They want to spend their lives together with a partner. I'm a participant. I've been married for 40 years. I got married at 19. So I understand why people get married. And, when you come together too, there's more purchasing power. A person can do a whole lot more with a partner than they can on their own. But here are the unfortunate realities. The divorce rate is 50%, 40 to 50%. And that's pretty high. And that's from the latest statistics. And we don't see that actually going down. In fact, it's continuing to increase every year. Society is changing in so many ways. But the good news is that you can, be divorced or going through a divorce or separation and can still buy a home.
Let's talk about that specifically, because we get those direct questions, as I'm sure you do. So I'm going to give you the two most common questions and you give us the short answer, and then we'll dive into what that really means. Okay? Right. Can I buy a home if my divorce is not final?
Yes, absolutely you can.
And can I buy a house if we're still married, but we've been separated?
Yes, absolutely, you can.
So those special circumstances surrounding divorce, dive into them, give us a little bit more information about those.
All right, so let's talk about first, can I buy a home if my divorce is not final? And again, the answer is yes. A divorce simply divides a family into two separate households. And so, one person is now completely divorced or separated from the other party. And that's from top to bottom, their finances, their money, and everything. And there are additional agreements and arrangements that are taking place that may or may not have been finalized. And so if it's an amicable divorce and there's communication, or even if it's not, and the lawyers are talking, you can work things out where you can purchase a home while you're going through the divorce. Now, you need to consult with your attorney about this because depending on what state you're in, and Carolyn, you and I are in California, it's a community property state, until you are actually divorced, anything you own is considered community property. Unless there was a prenuptial agreement or something of that nature. And again, consult your attorney about this. So if you're thinking about entering into a purchase contract to buy a home and your divorce is not final, the first step is to consult with your attorney. Make sure that you can move forward on that transaction without your partner, your ex-partner or spouse having rights or claims to that property. It can be done by agreement. Also, the underwriter is going to want to see that agreement, right? Because you're married, and we have to, especially on FHA loans, we have to consider the spouse's debt. We don't have to consider their credit, but we have to consider the spouse's debt. And so that's another factor you'll have to consider if you're going to move forward with buying a home before the divorce is final. And so the short answer is yes, you can do it. The long answer is you need to get with your attorney. You need to talk to your ex-partner. You need to make sure that everything is in writing and in agreement so that you can move forward.
Thanks, Eric. So what about if you actually are now, finalizing your divorce? How does this circumstance affect the loan underwriting?
So Carolyn, if you're married and your divorce is not finalized, the main thing you have to be worried about because you're about ready to move on, do your own thing, live your own life, right? So the main thing until it's finalized is that you have, in a community property state, you have the debt of the other party to consider on an FHA loan. On a conventional loan, you don't have to worry about that. But on a government loan, you have to worry about that you have to consider the debt. The underwriter has to consider the debt of the other party. The other thing is that in a community property state, until it's finalized, your partner has legal rights to all the assets that you possess. And so everything needs to be worked out with your attorney or with the partner in advance. Everything needs to be done in writing so that it is clear to the courts. And even the title company is going to want to see that, to ensure that there are no potential liens that come later on or claims that come later on as a result of you acquiring property while you were married and not legally completely divorced and or separated. Now, separation can take place too. There are legal separations where the people are legally married, but they're living separate lives. It's a legal separation, and the same thing applies. Again, consult with your attorney, make sure everything is done in writing, and then be able to provide the documentation to underwriting and to title to ensure that you'll be able to move forward with the transaction, and most importantly, so the other party can't make any claims on that asset you acquire later on.
Okay, this has been great information on divorce and separation. The short of what I'm hearing from you is that whether you have finalized your divorce or not, whether you're separated or not, this shouldn't be a factor that holds you back from considering moving forward with purchasing a home. But you do need to maybe consult with that attorney or a tax advisor. You also need to talk to your lender about what additional documentation they're going to need to put you in that position of qualifying for the mortgage loan.
You're absolutely right, Carol. In fact, let's look into some of the documentation requirements under the various types of arrangements. So let's just start off with a straight up, no frills, no contest divorce, right? You are divorced. So the underwriter is going to want to see the divorce decree. That's what they're going to want to see. You get ready to buy a property, so they're going to want to see the divorce decree or a court order in regard to any kind of support that you're supposed to get. So if you have been divorced and you're getting alimony, the court is going to want to see in the divorce decree the alimony terms. They want to see a court order to pay alimony. And then you're going to have to provide proof that you're getting it. I mean, we all know that there are some, ex-partners out there who are not paying what they're supposed to pay. And so the banks know that. And so they're going to want to see proof that you are getting the alimony and or child support you're supposed to get. So court order child support, court order alimony, we need to see the documentation. Now, if it's a separation and there is some type of agreement to provide spousal support or alimony or child support, but it's voluntary, right? And so you just agree to separate, you have a separation agreement, but in that agreement, there are no particular terms for spousal support or for alimony, but it's being done voluntarily. I mean, this does exist where you don't necessarily have to take the person and, under the color of the law and make them pay. They're willing to pay voluntarily. And so when there's voluntary payments for alimony or child support, underwriters going to want to see proof, right? We're talking counsel checks for the last 6 months minimum. In fact, the minimum requirement is 3 months. But, just to be safe, get the last 6 to 12 months of documentation, counsel checks, deposit receipts of the money coming in. And of course, if you have just an agreement between the two of you, a copy of that agreement, along with documentation of the payments received for child support, alimony, or any type of maintenance that you may be getting. If he's making the mortgage payment, so you agreed to separate, you're going to stay in the house, keep the house, but he's still on title. He's making the payments. All we need is proof, counsel checks of him making the payments for the last 12 months. And we don't have to count that payment against you if you're looking to buy another home and you're going to ultimately sell the home that you had together. And so there are workarounds, Carolyn, and that's the good news. I mean, divorce does not have to stop you from moving on. You need to sit down with a mortgage advisor. And so we can help you map out what you need to do, the documentation you need to have, the conversations you need to have with your attorney, with your spouse, so that we can get it right the first time. So many people find themselves in trouble and trying to close on a transaction because they haven't taken the time to sit down with a mortgage professional and the attorney to really map out the whole process. And also too, I want to warn everybody out there, attorneys are not mortgage consultants, neither are CPAs. They know the law and they know taxes, but they don't know anything about mortgages. You need to sit down with a seasoned and experienced mortgage advisor that can advise you on how to get the loan done. We can't tell you the legal ramifications of what you want to do. You need to consult with your attorney, but we can tell you exactly what you need to do to get that loan through.
So knowledge is power, and this entire part 5 of this series has been providing people with more in-depth information about qualifying for a mortgage. But the key point here is, while we're giving you lots of information, don't self-diagnose your circumstances. Get the help of a mortgage professional. Eric with First Bank has set up a website, neverrentagain.com, where you can schedule a time to speak to us about a mortgage loan and qualifying, but also about the down payment assistance programs from Golden State Finance Authority. You can go to qualifiedbynow.com and actually put in your information based on your incomes and debts. We have an affordability calculator available to see where you are in terms of your position and your readiness to buy a home. We're going to take a short break now. For those of you just joining us, this is part 5 of the Affordable Housing Series with Golden State Finance Authority and the Powers Now Media. We were wrapping up a conversation about divorce and separation and how that doesn't have to restrict you from moving forward with purchasing a home. Next up, we're going to talk about another financial hardship, ones surrounding bankruptcy, short sales, and maybe even some other special circumstances that can occur, and how they can affect you becoming a homeowner. Please stay with us. You're watching the Powers Now TV Affordable Housing Series with GSFA, Golden State Finance Authority. We will be right back.
Many Californians fear that they will not be able to pay their rent next month. Financial education and literacy are the catalyst for relief. So what resources are out there? A State of California program connects you with a HUD-certified housing counselor who can assist you on your financial education journey with no cost to you. Call today at 1-800-569-4287. Again, that is 1-800-569-4287.
And we are back. Welcome to the Powers Now Media Affordable Housing Series. My name is Carolyn Sunseri, and with me today is Eric Frazier, President and CEO of the Powers Now Media. We are talking about financial hardships and special circumstances and how they may or may not affect you purchasing a home. Eric, our next topic is Chapter 7, Chapter 13, bankruptcies. Will they affect you if you're looking to buy a home? And if so, how?
Great question, Carolyn. A Chapter 7 or 13 bankruptcy may affect your ability to buy a home, but it can't really stop you from buying a home. It's not a matter of if you can buy, but more so a matter of when you can buy. And we're going to get into those details. Now, I am not an attorney, so if you would like to know all the legal ramifications and strategies as it relates to Chapter 7 and Chapter 11, Chapter 13 bankruptcy, please consult an attorney. I'm going to give you a high-level overview of what it takes to get through underwriting if you have filed a Chapter 7, Chapter 11, or Chapter 13 bankruptcy.
So Eric, let's use another scenario like we've been doing with the other topics we've been discussing in this part 5 of the Affordable Housing Series. Let's talk about a couple, James and Belinda. They're married with children and they're renting a house. Now they're going through a divorce. James happens to be the primary provider during their marriage. So Belinda is struggling to handle everything on her own now, taking care of the rent, taking care of the children, and those expenses. So she ends up filing Chapter 7, liquidating her assets and even giving back her car. She was done being strapped with debts, struggling to keep food on the table. She starts to rebuild her life. She starts reestablishing credit. She goes back to school and she finishes some education and gets a better job. After a year on the job, she's now in a position to be making more money. It's now been 4 years since the bankruptcy. Does she have to keep renting or can she try and buy a home?
Carolyn, what I love about that scenario is that it kind of covers the first thing we dealt with, which was divorce and separation, and now bankruptcy. And so again, divorce is very prevalent in our society. And so she needed to separate from her spouse to, get her life, to achieve her goals, her personal goals. And I'm not sure if in your scenario she remarried again, but it looks like she focused on getting herself together, getting educated, getting a job, staying on the job for a while now, 4 years in, and she is in a great position to buy a house. So the first observation I have in regard to this particular scenario is that she waited too long. And maybe because you just didn't know that you can buy a home after filing bankruptcy, Chapter 7, in 2 years. There's only a 2-year seasoning requirement before you're eligible to purchase a home again. In a Chapter 13, it's actually even shorter than that. It's a 1-year seasoning requirement in a Chapter 13. For what am I saying is that you're actually in the Chapter 13 bankruptcy. It's typically a 5-year plan. You're in the plan, you're making payments to the trustee, and 1 year has gone by. You can actually get approval from the trustee of the court to buy a home. And if you have been able to maintain your credit, meet the minimum credit scores, which is like 620, and you can qualify based on the debt ratio requirements, you can buy a home. So in a chapter 13, we're talking a minimum of 1 year. In a chapter 7, we're talking about a minimum of 2 years. And so she got a job, she's making good money, and over time got promoted, even making even more money. And I wonder if she could have bought in her second year instead of waiting 4 years. And the sad thing about this scenario, because this is all about not having the right information, knowledge is power, and right, and the power is now, that if she would purchase that home 2 years ago, she may be sitting on in excess of $100,000 to $150,000 in equity. I have clients right now that have purchased 2 years ago who are sitting on $150,000 to $200,000 in equity. And so not, having the knowledge and taking action on that knowledge can cost you dearly, which it has in this particular scenario. Now, the good news is that she's ready to buy now, and she can afford the prices now. And so it's never too late. But it's just as an example, though, that you've got to get the education, you got to get the knowledge so that you can make the right moves and take advantage of the opportunities as they are presented to you.
That's what's been great about using these scenarios. They're real life circumstances that you probably have dealt with as a mortgage lender. They are real questions that we do receive. And we're correcting some misinformation, especially around bankruptcies. So take us through chapter 7, chapter 13 bankruptcies again. Clarify these guidelines for qualifying for a mortgage for our listeners one more time for us.
No problem, Carolyn. And, before I get into that, I just want to say that there are millions of people filing bankruptcy. So if you have filed bankruptcy, don't be ashamed. Don't worry about what people think. The reality is that there are thousands of people every single year filing bankruptcy, and many people have been impacted through the pandemic and through job layoffs, what have you, medical situations. You just never know what's going on in a person's life as to why they have to file bankruptcy. Thank God it exists. It's actually rooted in scripture for those of you who are, Bible readers. I mean, that there's a time of forgiveness of debt. And so that's what it is. So let's look at chapter 13 first, or actually chapter 7. We'll look at chapter 7. Chapter 7 is a complete liquidation. Talk about a clean slate. That's exactly what it is. And again, I'm not an attorney, so if you want more details on this, please consult with your attorney. Now, the good news is that although it wipes out all your debt, all of it, you have to reestablish your credit. You do. And there are many ways to do that. Carolyn, we should do a show just on that, right? But there are many ways to reestablish your credit through secured credit cards. And there are a lot of lenders out there, even in bankruptcy, will help you reestablish credit. And so the chapter 7 requires a minimum of 2 years of seasoning behind the discharge date. So if you were discharged in April of 2022, then it's going to be April of 2024 before you are eligible to purchase a home with a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. Now, during that time period, you will have to reestablish your credit, right? And so all lenders have a minimum Fico Score requirement. In most cases, it's 620. So if you haven't reestablished your credit, then you're not going to be eligible even after 2 years. And so know this now. If this is something you've done, you haven't started rebuilding your credit, do it today. Now, there are extenuating circumstances that lead to bankruptcy. And these extenuating circumstances are just that, circumstances beyond your control that caused you to file bankruptcy. It could be a death in the family. It could be a loss of job. It could be a number of very serious things that are beyond your control. Now, underwriters are pretty tough when it comes to extenuating circumstances. So we have to provide clear documentation and proof that the extenuating circumstances did in fact lead you to having to file a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, and that, of course, that the circumstances no longer exist, that it's a new day in your life and you're ready to get back in to home ownership if you were in it before, to get back in, or if you're just getting started, to get started today. So that's Chapter 7, bankruptcy. Any questions about Chapter 7?
No, I think that's a great overview. Again, consult your mortgage advisor, talk to them about your actual circumstances, and possibly that lawyer as well to get more information, but don't self-diagnose yourself. Just because you had a Chapter 7 bankruptcy doesn't mean that you have to wait years and years and years down the road in order to be in a position to buy a home. Let's talk about Chapter 13 now.
What I love about Chapter 13, Carolyn, is that unlike Chapter 7, where you're kind of locked down for 2 years, Chapter 13 is actually not a liquidation. Although some debts could be discharged even in a Chapter 13, Chapter 13 is a reorganization of your debt. You know, it's unfortunate that some creditors out there kind of force you into that situation because they're not willing to work with you. They're not willing to lower their interest rate. They're not willing to restructure the payments, and they're just not willing to cooperate. Well, we have something for creditors who behave that way. It's called Chapter 13 bankruptcy. So if you're not going to listen to your debtor, then you're going to listen to the court, and the court's going to reduce that interest rate. They may even reduce the amount that they owe you, and they will force you into a 5-year plan so the borrower can pay you. And so bankruptcy Chapter 13 is a viable alternative to many people who are just overwhelmed with debt, so much debt that it would be impossible for them to become debt-free because the interest alone is just too much. It's too much to even begin to pay to the principal. So on a Chapter 13, the trustee will organize or reorganize your debt. And by the way, you know, the most common filer of a Chapter 13 are airlines. I mean, I think through the 80s and 90s, it seemed like every month there was an airline or a car company filing a Chapter 11. And that's the difference. A Chapter 11 is like a business bankruptcy reorganization, like a Chapter 13 is a personal bankruptcy reorganization. And so why do they file a Chapter 11 as a business? For the same reason you do as an individual. You want to make your debt more affordable. You want to stay in business. You want to honor your obligations, but you need better terms. So with the Chapter 13, after your 13th payment, on your 13th payment, right? It's a 5-year plan. On your 13th payment, you are now eligible to get an FHA loan, which is fantastic, right? All you have to do is have your attorney petition the courts to get approval to do so. And of course, your attorney will lay out all the reasons why you want to buy, and that you're obviously making your payments to the trustee on time, which is basically a consolidated payment of all your debts. And if the court approves it, you can buy a home right now. I mean, it's amazing that you can buy a home, Carolyn, while in bankruptcy on a Chapter 13.
Thank you, Eric. I would like to remind our viewers and our listeners right now that the information we are sharing about bankruptcies, these loan agency guidelines, are the same guidelines that Golden State Finance Authority follows in order to qualify for down payment and closing cost assistance when you're getting a mortgage loan. That extra financial help that can help you purchase. So talk with your loan officer about your situation. Again, you can visit neverrentagain.com to set up a consultation with Eric Frazier of First Bank. He can help you figure out your next steps so that you know these requirements. Now, next up, we're going to talk about short sales and foreclosures and deed in lieu. You are listening to GSFA's Affordable Housing Series with the Powers Now TV and Golden State Finance Authority. We will be right back.
The Powers Now magazines are the leading resource for real estate agents, mortgage bankers, entrepreneurs, and small home ownership businesses, providing leaders with business strategy information, resources, and tools through PIN, real estate, programming guide magazines. Stay up to the minute with real estate news and information from industry experts. Subscription is free. Sign up today. thepowersnow.com. thepowersnow.com.
And we are back. This is the Affordable Housing Series with Golden State Finance Authority and the Powers Now Media. My name is Carolyn Sunseri, and with me today is Eric Frazier, Vice President, Mortgage Advisor of First Bank. We are here talking about short sales and foreclosures and deed in lieu now, and whether or not these affect you buying a home.
Carolyn, I also am really enjoying this series because we are changing lives right now. We are empowering people with information, and I hope that people watching this today will feel motivated to actually move forward and call me, get on the phone, schedule an appointment, and that's really look at your own individual situation because you can do it.
I agree, Eric. Information is very empowering. So let's talk about something that's affected a lot of people, especially in the years 2008, 2009, around there. A lot of people lost their homes during those struggling economic years. These are financial circumstances that actually happen every day. Maybe there are things that beyond people's control that affect their ability to make the mortgage payments on time. We just went through 2 years of a pandemic and a lot of changes in people's employment and income. Sometimes that results in foreclosures and short sales on their home. But that doesn't always have to be the end of one's home ownership dreams.
No, it doesn't, Carolyn. We want to keep homeownership dreams alive. And I realize that economic circumstances, loss of job, divorce, medical challenges, all these things are serious issues, and they can derail us temporarily on our journey to homeownership, but it doesn't have to end the journey completely.
That's absolutely right, Eric. So let's share another scenario that our viewers, our listeners may really be able to relate to or know somebody that has been in these circumstances. Let's talk about medical bills and maybe them leading to someone losing a home. In 2005, we have Jerry. He bought a home. He got a great deal on the home. It was before the market really started increasing in the next couple of years. But then he got sick and he couldn't work. He had to go on disability income, which was not enough to cover most expenses. And he had no savings left after a short period of time. He ends up putting his home up for sale in 2008. Can't get the price he wants because that was when the market was a little down. He ends up selling the house for $550,000, which was a good $150,000, $200,000 less than when he bought it as a short sale, just before the notice of the trustee sale to foreclosure. He didn't really do anything wrong getting himself in this situation. He got sick unexpectedly. The loss of 40% of his income affected his ability to make those mortgage payments. Now it's been, let's say, 5 years after losing his home and regaining his health. He's back working and able to make money again. He's hesitated from buying a home because he doesn't know if he would qualify, having had a foreclosure. So what do you say, Eric?
Well, first, Jerry is not alone. Many people were impacted by the foreclosure crisis that really began in 2008. They bought their homes early in 2001 to 2003 and 5, interest rates were low and property values were just going through the roof. And so it all peaked out around 2008, and then it all came crashing down. Add to that, dealing with loss of job and health issues and what have you, going on disability. I feel for Jerry, and I'm impressed that he's been able to come back from it and now is in a position to buy. So what Jerry needs is knowledge. First, he needs to know that, Jerry, in spite of that foreclosure, you can still buy a home. You can buy a home, and in fact, it's not a foreclosure. In his particular case, it was a short sale. So that means he sold the property to a buyer who was willing to pay less than what was actually owed on the property. And so the lender took a loss, right, in trying to get rid of the asset. Now, today, fast forward, we see the foreclosure crisis is starting to rev up. There are many people who are in some type of pre-foreclosure stage. And if it wasn't for government moratoriums, they would be in foreclosure right now. The good news, though, is that property values are at an all-time high. There are very few homes on the market where people have not made their mortgage payment for whatever reason, and they're in some type of pre-foreclosure or foreclosure situation where there's not equity in the home. And so many banks are treating the situation much differently. They're working with agents to get them sold. They're working with people to help them, navigate through their circumstances so that they can retain some of the equity. In Jerry's case, the good news is that there's only a 3-year waiting period after a short sale to be able to purchase a home. And it's not just a short sale, it's even a foreclosure. So had it gone to foreclosure and he completely lost out, then it would still just be a 3-year waiting period for an FHA loan. Now, this is really good news because this enables him to be able to get back into the game with as little as 3.5% down on FHA and start building wealth again. It's amazing that real estate has been and will continue to be the primary driver of building wealth and providing stability for families. But as we can see in Jerry's case, just owning the property is the beginning of the journey. You have to retain that property, which means you need to have reserves, you need to have disability insurance, you need to have additional protections to ensure that you're able to weather the storms of life that will come.
And in Jerry's case, there was a special circumstance here, a serious illness. Are there even more exceptions in regards to these kinds of extenuating circumstances?
Absolutely, there are. So first, even with a short sale, if you were, here's one that's very common, where in Jerry's situation, he got very, very sick. And so if he can provide the documentation to show that the short sale and the foreclosure, or the short sale in this particular case, was beyond his control, then he may be able to get an exception to the seasoning requirement of 3 years. Another example of extenuating circumstances would be that a person, perhaps they did not, they had some financial issues that occurred or health issues that occurred, but they were able to maintain the payments. They actually made the payments all the way up and through the actual sale of the property. They were never late on the mortgage. And so the only thing that happened was that the lender took a loss. In those cases, an exception can be made for you to be able to buy a home immediately and not have to wait the 3-year process. And so there are exceptions, but in every case of an exception, Carolyn, we have to do our homework. We got to get the documentation. We have to make a very, very strong case. This is where mortgage advisors become almost like attorneys. We've got to document and prove the situation was beyond your control in order to get the underwriter to make the exception.
Thanks, Eric. Now, that had to do more with short sales. So what if somebody experiences going through a full foreclosure?
Carolyn, great question. In fact, I want to make sure there's to clarify the distinction between the two. So a short sale is a lender taking the loss, but the house is sold, right? And again, we just spoke about the extenuating circumstances whereby an exception could be made to purchase a home within the 3-year period. But a foreclosure is a complete loss to the lender, right? The borrower loses the property completely and is forced out. And in those situations, the guidelines are a little bit more stricter. Now, as it relates to FHA, it's still a 3-year requirement after a foreclosure, a 3-year requirement. But for conventional loans, it is a 7-year requirement. 7 years you have to wait. Now, there are some extenuating circumstances whereby it could happen even on a conventional loan within 4 years. 4 years on a conventional loan with a foreclosure versus 7 years on a conventional loan with a foreclosure. The extenuating circumstances, death in the family, loss of a job, sickness, severe illness. One of the circumstances that do not count for either government or conventional is divorce. And we all know, we all know somebody who's been through a crazy divorce, lost everything. It doesn't count as an extenuating circumstances. So you have to either be death in the family, it has to be loss of job, or some type of very serious illness, and all of it has to be proven and documented. Now, the other thing too, if there is an exception, say a 4-year exception, you've been in 4 years, you were able to prove extenuating circumstances, you're still going to have to come in with at least 10% down. So the maximum loan to value is 90% or 10% down, as opposed to someone who meets the full 7-year period or FHA, 3-year period, they would be able to put only 3.5% down FHA, 3% down conventional. You're going to be limited to 10% down. The other thing too is that for people who have filed multiple bankruptcies, then it could even be more restrictive. And time will not allow me to get into those particulars, but if you have that situation, if you filed multiple bankruptcies over the last 5 to 7 years, or if you had multiple properties in which you have lost through foreclosures, do not give up hope. Sit down with a mortgage advisor. I'm available to assist you to answer those questions. And we need to look at your unique circumstances. And that's the great thing about lending, Carolyn. I mean, I meet people every day from different walks of life and situations, and everybody's situation is different. So don't listen to the street and hear about somebody who was able to do this and someone who was able to do that. It may not, their circumstances may be completely different than your own. Sit down with a mortgage advisor and get the information you need so that he or she can provide a way to make homeownership a reality for you, provide a plan that you can follow to ultimately qualify for the home loan that you absolutely need.
Thank you, Eric. And I'd like to take another moment to remind our viewers, our listeners, that again, Golden State Finance Authority follows these loan agency guidelines in regards to short sales and foreclosures. So we're not going to add any other restrictions or guidelines or additional documentation if you're trying to qualify for a down payment assistance program through Golden State Finance Authority as well. These are the mortgage guidelines as set by the loan agencies, whether you're getting whichever type of mortgage loan you're getting, an FHA, a VA, a USDA, or conventional loan financing. Our goal here at Golden State Finance Authority is simply to add the ability to purchase that home with some assistance in financial assistance for the down and the closing costs, to maybe make that easier, to give you more purchasing power, or to maybe help you purchase sooner than if you had to save up all that money for the down and the closing costs. You've been listening to the GSFA Affordable Housing Series with the Power is Now TV. With me today is Eric Frazier, Vice President and Mortgage Advisor of First Bank. He's also the President and CEO of the Power is Now Media. Next up, we're going to dive into tax liens and collection accounts and how those can affect, may or may not affect buying a home. Stay with us, we will be right back.
The Power is Now magazines are the leading resource for real estate agents, mortgage bankers, entrepreneurs, and small home ownership businesses, providing leaders with business strategy information, resources, and tools through PIN, Real Estate, Programming Guide magazines. Stay up to the minute with real estate news and information from industry experts. Subscription is free. Sign up today. thepowerisnow.com. thepowerisnow.com.
And we are back. Welcome to the Power is Now Media Affordable Housing Series. This is part 5 of our wonderful series. My name is Carolyn Sunseri, and with me today is Eric Frazier, Vice President and Mortgage Advisor of First Bank. We are going to talk about tax liens and collection accounts and whether or not those affect one's ability to purchase a home. You know, as we talk about these financial hardships, Eric, these special circumstances, I wonder how many people mistakenly think they can't buy a home versus how many really truly don't meet the loan guidelines, the requirements to qualify for a mortgage. I think we'd all be quite surprised.
I agree with you, Carolyn. I believe there are probably millions of people out there who are renting, paying just crazy rent right now because they have self-diagnosed. They heard something on the street, or someone who doesn't even own a home is advising them and saying, oh man, you can't buy a home. Look at, you did this, you did that, you have this, you have that. No way, forget about it. And they don't own a home. So they're getting the wrong information, they're talking to the wrong people, and they're making assumptions about what they can do instead of actually talking with a professional that can not only tell them, we may even validate that, yes, you know what? You're absolutely right. You can't buy right now, but you can buy later. And this is what you need to do between now and later to be in a position to buy. Knowledge is power. And the power is?
Power is now. I would totally agree. I think if we had a penny for every client that didn't think they could qualify for a mortgage loan, we'd be rich.
Oh my God, for sure. I know I would be millions more in the bank.
Yeah, misinformation is definitely one of the biggest challenges that we're trying to break through. It's the real reason why we're putting out this affordable housing series. Thank you for partnering with us. Let's dive into another scenario, and we're going to use a scenario with Jeremy and Rachel, husband and wife with 2 kids. They're renting. She's now pregnant with their 3rd child. They don't want to stay in the same house they've been renting for 10 years. They need more space. The landlord keeps raising rent. We keep seeing that in California. But they've got about $15,000 in medical bills that have gone to collections because their youngest child was really sick. Unfortunately, in the last 3 years, they've got back taxes and penalties on that, as well as this medical bill that's in collections. They see their dream of homeownership as just a dream now. What do you say?
No, they need to make contact with the IRS. They need to make contact with the collection agencies, and they need to work out a payment arrangement. In fact, there are many organizations, there are HUD-approved counseling agencies that can help them with coming up with reasonable terms to pay back the IRS and to pay back the medical collections. You can do it. And if they were sitting down with me, Carolyn, that's what I would be advising them to do, is to, first I would tell them, okay, based on what you owe, you need to make payment arrangements, and your payments should not be more than X. That could be 100, 200, 300, $400 a month. I'm going to come up with a payment, and so that they'll have a goal to reach an agreement with either the IRS or with the collection agency. And the reason why I'm going to come up with that payment is because that payment is going to be the maximum that they can afford to pay them and still qualify for a mortgage. And so we're going to kind of back into the payment arrangements. And so, of course, this is going to happen before they even have a conversation with the IRS or the collection agency, because again, they want to buy a home and they don't want to wait until that debt is paid off. They don't want to wait until the medical bills are paid off. Imagine the way property values have been increasing every single year since 2008. I mean, we're looking at 10 to 15% appreciation in some markets. And so you're going to wait until you pay off the debt before you buy a house. It is simply not an option. By the time you pay off that debt 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, the homes may have doubled or at least increased another 20, 30, 40, 50%. And so you've got to sit down with a mortgage advisor and then just kind of back into what you can afford. Another way is to use a budget. Just come up with a budget too, because just because I tell you what your payment can be in order to qualify for the mortgage, your payment to the IRS and your payment to the collection agency doesn't mean you can afford it, right? So you need to have a budget so you can know exactly what's going to be left over for food and groceries and utilities and all those things that you need to pay that we don't even count from a mortgage perspective. We don't count those things. We don't count babysitting and little Johnny's ballet classes and, you know, cable and food and utilities. We don't count any of that stuff. And so you got to add, bring the budget into play. We got to back into the number, know what the number is to pay the IRS, to pay the collection accounts, so that then you know what you can go to them and start the negotiations with the debt. That's the strategy that I would utilize. That's the path that I would put clients on.
That's great news, Eric. And I agree with you. It's a path. Sometimes it's about preparing yourself to be in the right position to purchase a home, and consulting with a mortgage advisor may provide you more information about the steps you need to take to get to that place. So collections and debts and collection status, back taxes owed, these things don't have to end that dream of home ownership. Consult a mortgage advisor, sit down, talk about what you need to do and what you can afford, so that you can still pursue buying a home.
Carolyn, you're absolutely right. And it can even get better. I mean, the fact that you can have open tax liens, owe the IRS money, and open collection accounts on medical bills and maybe other credit-related accounts, and still qualify for down payment assistance? Get out of here. Well, how does that happen, right? I think most people think that in order to get down payment assistance, you got to have perfect credit, you got to have everything lined up, make a lot of money, or maybe no money. You know, it seems like they think it falls into the extremes. You got to be either super qualified or you have to be, you know, almost poor to get help for down payment assistance. And in both cases, it's simply not true.
You know, that's a great segue. I'd like to share a little bit about how flexible down payment and closing cost assistance with Golden State Finance Authority is. We, of course, follow these loan agency guidelines on these financial circumstances that we've been talking about, but you don't have to have perfect credit. We have credit score requirements as low as 620. That is not perfect credit. We also allow debt to income ratios up to 55%. That's, you know, how much you have outstanding in debts versus how much income you have coming in. Again, a mortgage advisor can help you figure out where you are with your DTI or debt to income ratio. But our requirement is very flexible there. And you don't have to be a first-time home buyer to qualify for down payment and closing cost assistance. You don't even have to be not in possession or not owning a home today. If you own a home today, but you're looking to purchase a home that you're going to be moving into as your primary residence, you can qualify for down payment and closing cost assistance on that new purchase. Again, sit down with your mortgage advisor. Down payment assistance can often be the one thing that can help people get into a mortgage loan rather than having to wait a couple of years to come up with that savings for the down, for the closing costs. And with the rising prices in home, we are here to give you this information so you can get started now, so you can become a homeowner and stop paying rent to a landlord. You can start building financial security and equity in your own property. So Eric, tell us, what are the underwriting guidelines when you have collections, judgments, or you owe taxes?
The underwriting guidelines are incredibly flexible, but also so is Golden State. You know, every time I hear you kind of lay out the requirements, I get excited because I know what homeownership means to me and my family. I've been a homeowner practically my entire life, and I did not have this kind of help at all. No one was advising me like this. I didn't know of resources like this for down payment assistance. I did it the hard way. And I think that's why, Carolyn, I'm so happy to be in partnership with you and Golden State in putting together these educational videos to really explain the power of down payment assistance and of organizations like yours that are out there educating and assisting people into buying a home. And I want to just touch on a couple of things you say before I get into the particulars of the underwriting guidelines as it relates to both the taxes and medical collections. So first, when you say a 620 FICO score, I mean, know this, folks, that's bad credit. 620 is not good credit. That's not good credit. Is 740, 780, 800. That's good credit. You can get help with a 620 FICO score. On top of that, the amount of help that you can get is as high as 6.5% to 7% in down payment assistance, depending on the program. That's a lot of money. Here in California, a $500,000 house, 6% in down payment assistance is 30 grand. Who's going to give you $30,000? Just give it to you, right? And even though it starts off as a loan, it's forgiven over a 3-year period. And if you're a first responder, it's a grant from day one. And the other thing that I like what you said is that, you know, many people, the fastest growing segment of our population here in the United States are old folks like myself. I'm a baby boomer. I live in a house way too big for me. And so I'm going to sell it eventually and downsize. And the fact that I can, because I'm not a first-time home buyer, can leverage down payment assistance with the Golden State Finance Authority, save me some money, and downsizing and buying into a house, another house, that's a game changer. Why would I not want to use OPM, other people's money, right, to get into another home, a smaller home? Why wouldn't I want to do that? And so you guys have made Golden State has made, you know, down payment assistance available to everyone. And I really encourage everyone to take advantage of it and get the information, learn about it. And if you don't need it, tell somebody about it, because I'm confident there's someone in your family, your immediate family, your friends, your neighbors that need to know that this kind of help is available. So now let me dive into the underwriting guidelines, and the flexibility is just going to blow you away. So first, in regard to taxes, I said earlier, I'm going to sit down with a client, I'm going to back into a number. All right, there's a number. Everybody has a number, right? If you owe $15,000 to the IRS, you have a number that you can afford to pay in order to buy a house. And your job now is to get the IRS to buy into that number. Now, here's the thing. Once you get them to agree, and this applies not just to the IRS, this applies to any collection account, whether it be a metal collection account or a credit card that was charged off and is now in collection, any collection account. Once you get them to agree, all you need to do is make 3 payments in a row over a 3-month period on time. You can't just write a check for 3 payments and send it to them all at once. You have to make 3 payments over a 3-month period. And the reason for this is because, underwriters were born at night, but they weren't born last night, right? They know that you can manipulate the system by, reaching agreement, sending 3 payments, and then not paying anymore. So they want to see that you're actually committed to the arrangement and that you're going to make the payments and you're going to make them on time for a minimum of 3 months. So if you're in this situation, you are at a minimum 3 to 4 months away for being in a position to, make a deal, make a payment arrangement, and also make the 3 months payments, and then you can apply for the loan. Now, if it's a medical collection account on FHA, not forgive, we're not going to forgive anything. But if it's $2,000 or less, we're not going to even count it. It is like it doesn't even exist if it's $2,000 or less. Anything above $2,000, then you're going to have payment arrangements. Now, if you don't want to make payment arrangements, and I get it, I have a client that says the insurance company should have paid it. There's no way I'm going to pay this ever. This is the insurance responsibility. I pay them hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars a year, and they don't pay the medical bills. I am not going to pay it, Eric. Okay, we're not going to force you to pay it, but we're going to allocate a certain amount of that debt towards your debt to income ratio. So on FHA loans, it's going to be 1%. So if you owe, $1,000, it's going to be $10. If it's $10,000, it's going to be $100 that we're going to apply to your debt to income ratio. If it's a conventional loan, we'll use 5%, depending, 5%, that's of the annual amount, 5% per month. So we take 5% of the total debt, that's going to be your monthly payment added to your debt to income ratio. And so if we can do that and you still qualify, then more power to it. But if we can't do that, then you need to get into a payment arrangement, then that's what you need to do. And you need to make the payments over a 3-month period, and then you apply. And hopefully with those payment arrangements and paying off other debts, your scores are at least 620, so you can be eligible for down payment assistance. So it's really not that hard. It's not that hard. The credit requirements are easy. And I tell you, Carolyn, every time I meet with a client, I just think to myself, man, all these years, the average client I meet with have been renting for 10 to 15 years. I mean, do the math, $2,000 a month. That is $24,000 a year. Over 10 years, that's $240,000. They have literally just lit a match to. They just put it all in the middle of the floor and lit a match through, have nothing to show for it. And so what you do with Golden State, what we're doing together is so important. And I hope people will respond and reach out to us and get the help you need. You need to buy right now.
I totally agree, Eric. This has been so much great information in this segment. Don't let financial hardships and special circumstances stop you from achieving that dream or stop you from even realizing that dream is possible. Eric, you're a superhuman mortgage advisor guy sharing all this information.
Thank you, Carolyn. Superhuman. I'm just an ordinary guy who is passionate about homeownership and want to help everyone make the dream of homeownership a reality. Carolyn, I'll be turning 60 here very, very soon, and my days are numbered. I'm going to be retiring soon, and I hope to put thousands of people into homes before I do, to help them achieve the American dream, the dream that I've been living most of my life. And it has made a huge difference for me and my family. And I wanted to make a difference in the lives of others.
And it's made a huge difference in my life as well. It has been a part of building some financial security for the future. I've had a lot of great pride and enjoyment in being a homeowner. And so if this is your dream, this is something that you want for your future, please don't self-diagnose your circumstances. Reach out to a mortgage advisor, talk to us. about whether or not the down payment and closing cost assistance can also make that dream of home ownership even easier. Well, this is the completion of our Affordable Housing Series Part 5. This Part 5 segment was on financial hardships and special circumstances. I can't believe it. It was so much good information. I want to encourage our listeners and viewers to watch all 5 parts of the Affordable Housing Series. You can watch it on the GSFA website and YouTube channel. You can also watch it on the Powers Now website and TV and social media platforms. You can also listen to the full series on the Powers Now radio broadcast, the podcast, wherever you get those podcasts, Apple TV, Roku, Fire TV, smart TVs, all mobile devices. The Powers Now media has a singular focus on housing education and home ownership, and we love them about that. Partnering with the Powers Now media has been such a wonderful experience. Putting this Affordable Housing Series together with you, Eric, and with the Powers Now media has been a huge asset to potential home buyers throughout the state of California. It's been wonderful working with you. I think we've accomplished our goal, which was to help get the right information out to people so they can move forward with home ownership.
Thank you, Carolyn. The partnership has been a blessing to me to achieve the mission of our company, the Powers Now Media, and that is to make homeownership a reality, wealth building a reality for everyone. And so I want to encourage those who are listening and are watching to follow us on our website, watch our 24/7 television on our website, thepowersnow.com. Follow us on all social media, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. Download our TV app where you can watch the entire Golden State Affordable Series and also a brand new series by the Golden State Finance Authority called Journey to Homeownership. And I'm really excited about partnering with them to tell the stories of those who have heeded our advice, Carolyn, and have bought a home using down payment assistance. And I'm just looking forward to continuing to do this great storytelling on the incredible importance and value that homeownership brings to everyone. Thank you, Carolyn, for your partnership.
You know, Eric, thank you so much for mentioning that other series. We have just developed a new series called The Journey to Home Ownership. Episode 3 will be coming out very soon. And you can listen to people or watch actual stories, actual home buyers or home owners now talk about their journey to achieving that dream. And what I find most fascinating about those is that each individual, each family has had some special circumstances. And I don't think we realize, but we all do. And so when you can relate to somebody else and see how they overcame their challenges and became homeowners, I think it can be very inspiring, and it can really help people realize that it doesn't have to be the end of their dreams, maybe just because they went through some financial hardships. GSFA is a proud sponsor of the Affordable Housing Series and the series Journey to Home Ownership. They're devoted to homebuyer education and educating borrowers about down payment assistance and closing cost assistance, many other things that you might need to know about the process of buying a home. We hope that you will enjoy further content that we develop. Please visit the Powers Now TV online at thepowersnow.com and Golden State Finance Authority at gsfahome.org. Follow both of us on social media and YouTube. Again, my name is Carolyn Sunseri. I'm the Director of Marketing with Golden State Finance Authority, wishing your homeownership dreams become a reality, because knowledge is power and the power is now. Thank you for watching.